Welcome to the Atomic Construction Podcast, the show where we break down what it really takes to build better projects, stronger teams, and a more respected construction industry. The Atomic Construction Podcast is hosted by Kevin Hoey, construction leader and lifelong learner. Every week he sits down with people who are out there doing the work to talk honestly about the challenges, wins, and wild stories behind the job sites. We cover everything from scaling businesses and navigating project costs to building strong leadership, creating community, and restoring real respect to the trades. And now, here's Kevin.
All right, builders. I often say it's the quietest that you should listen to. I think Herb is that. I mean, I'm not saying he's not loud, but his humility, all of his success, he doesn't talk about it. He won't talk about it. I just think he's an absolute legend of our industry. 11,000 people and follow on LinkedIn. It's not for no reason. I think in 8 hours, he said he had like 30 or 40 people that want to sign up to be closer to him. So if you're going to listen to one, you should listen to this one. I am a passionate advocate for the trades. I think the trades are amazing. I was just told that you're doing some really innovative stuff to get younger people involved. And I looked you up. Don't grade my Googling. I couldn't figure out. I know Scott told me what you were doing. I saw a podcast. I didn't find that. I'd love to talk about that. I'd love to talk about ESOPs, and then I'd love to talk about some of the stuff that I'm up to, but I don't want to be a narcissist. So I want you to do most of this talking. Really quick about me. I run a $50 million specialty construction. We're a fence installation company. I say that we're a labor provider by way of fences. So I don't know much, but I know a thing or two. Now I'm going to do what I said and let you talk. How would you like to be introduced? I think you said in the other pod, like, I'm Herb. I would like to be introduced as Herb. But, like, I'm going to make you give me more than that. Like, what's the tagline for Mr. Sargent?
Well, I guess I'd say I'm Herb. If you look at my LinkedIn profile, it pretty much tells my story. I'm an ESOP lover, and I believe wholeheartedly in the millennials and younger. I'm 100% behind all this story about young people don't want to work and all that. They are changing the world.
I completely agree with you. Why do you think that you're like and are you a boomer? What generation?
I'm the tail end of the boomers.
No boomer loves millennials, much
I'm
less.
I'm going to close the door on the way out, I guess. So.
Yeah. Why do you think that it's rare for a boomer? Like I feel like every generation has disdain for the next generation. Why are you such a rarity? Why is that such a normal thing to?
I probably because of the perspective I've gained from watching a lot of young people grow and come into our business primarily. I mean, we've really attracted a lot of young people in the last 15 years, especially 10, 12 years, and just watching the way they think, the way they're more discerning, I think, about what's true and what's not true. I think they just tend to be a little clearer thinking, certainly than I was when I was 25 or 30. Probably more clear than I am now.
And I'm just wondering though, like, why do you think that you Herb Sargent, first boomer I've ever met that adores the younger generation, right? Like I've met plenty that are just like, oh, they're lazy, like even my generation, the millennials, like we existed in this, like everybody hated. I'm not proud to be a millennial if I'm being honest, but like we were what boomers hated, and now we've become the boomer and like talking crap about Gen Z, Gen Alpha. Like what is that? Is it just a fear of difference? Like
I think it's just, the world has changed a lot since, since I came into the workforce. We've had fax machines introduced, cell phones introduced, the internet introduced, right? And now all the AI madness. Since I've come into the workforce, all this stuff has been added to society, and I think it just I think the people my age and older just have really had a difficult time adopting a lot of that technology and probably are a little suspicious of it. And every right to be, right? If you've ever had an account hacked, enough to be suspicious. But
sure.
But I think it's just the way people learn now is a whole lot different than the way I learned as a kid. I learned as a kid by turning my bicycle upside down and taking the chain off it and, go and get a new chain, fix it. And you rarely ever see kids out riding a bike by themselves anymore, right? And, no pickup basketball games or baseball games. I used to play baseball in a field all the time. And you don't see that anymore. So I think a lot of people in my generation just think that's wrong. But it's really what we've created. And that's the thing that we never see. It's like we help create this thing that we complain about all the time.
Yeah, so not to go, and I believe I saw a video, so I would love to talk about theology and how God plays a factor in your role if you're willing to. I know that's a vulnerable place for a lot of people, but before we do that, let's talk politics. Let's just go to all the topics that they should. But there seems to be these two trains of thought that AI is ruining the world and then AI is going to, I don't know. No, it's going to be great. Obviously, somewhere in the middle is the truth. But what's your view on this AI craze as a man that's you've witnessed a lot of technology adoption.
Yeah. All the way back to the fax machine. So, and that changed the way we communicated back then. If you faxed something, it was urgent. If you wrote them a letter at the time, it was, it wasn't quite as urgent. But back to the question around AI. I use it. I use ChatGPT a lot. I don't use much else, but I know a lot of people use it. I don't. It's like the toothpaste out of the tube, right? We're not going to just push it all back in and not have AI. That's not a real thing. So I think what we need to do is figure out how to adopt it to the best possible use, and whether that's improving our operations, improving the way we treat people, or the way we communicate with people. I think that's an important thing to try to. There's so many answers in this little corner of AI that I call ChatGPT. There's so many answers there that sometimes it would take a month of sitting by yourself in the dark to think through and come up with at least the right questions to ask yourself. So I'm a fan of it. I'm not running away from it.
So you don't give much credence to any of these, like the idea that it's gonna. I would assume, you being a very capable man, that if you had any fear of this eradicating humanness, like, I'm not talking about the total, like, just the skeptics that never wanted to pick up a keyboard, right? But the well-intended worry that, like, there's what is left of the human after AI comes in, right? And so you see a more optimistic picture for that humans will protect themselves.
Well, there's a lot yet to unfold about it, but am I nihilistic about it? No, I'm not. I might be proven wrong, but I don't believe it's going to wipe out humankind or totally wipe out the need for humankind to serve itself. That's what humankind primarily is serving itself, and you could argue whether we're good stewards of the planet and all that business, but I tend to think we're doing better at that. And I'm not in the global warming crowd, but I just tend to think that we're doing a lot better with the planet in the last, let's say, 50 years, and that's been a big piece of our business. Sewer, water, treatment plants, landfills, that sort of stuff that really wasn't a part of our business before that, and I think we've got to serve ourselves that way.
Very good. Well, Herb says it's all right, so I'm taking it to the bank. Then it's all going to be all right. If I may, like, just talk about, you're a fan of ESOPs, and I'm doing, most of my goal is to talk to the last hammer. So the people that actually lace up their boots and go to work, and then particularly us, the specialty guys that employ labor. And I think our supply chain maybe doesn't always represent the builders so well. But what would your advice be, particularly, like, just, it's a very general statement, but if you were talking to somebody that's, I'm running a 1 to 20 person company, I one day want to be where Herb is, or I want to be successful, what's, like, your gaining wisdom for that entrepreneur?
Well, I mean, I've been on a lot of calls in the last month or so. I've been on 20 something leadership calls with people all across North America. And what I'm seeing is there's so much ambiguity of authority in these companies. Like every conversation I have, I can ask a few questions, and there's both ambiguity of expectations and ambiguity of authority. And I think if we can be clear about the expectations and the authority lines, it eliminates a lot of what seems like personal friction between people, but it's really part of the structure of their businesses. And so what I would say is, put intentional structure into your business, because what I'm seeing and people I'm talking to don't really have much time for strategy, or at least they don't seem to talk like when I ask the question, how much time you spend in tactical mode, operational mode, and strategic mode, and it's almost always, the vast majority is in tactical mode. So they're not up kind of seeing where their business is going. And that would be the piece that I'd say, to answer your question, is to try to create a structure in your business that has clear expectations and accountability to those expectations. And then also have people make decisions so you don't have to make every one of them. That's if you take, like a basketball game and you've got good tempo, the decision is always made at the ball, right? The guy with the ball is the one making the decisions. And that's what I'd say. Put the decision at the lowest possible place, so you and give proper feedback so you can get up and out of the weeds and look ahead.
I love that. And now I guess if I can, and I'm sorry if my online, I'm not good at stalking. I get stuck. I'm ADD, but what's next for you? So you've, when did you guys ESOP, and then you moved to chair, and then you have fully retired, but based on your last 30 days, it doesn't sound like you've retired from working. You've just changed your venue, huh?
Well, it's a little project of love, really, what it is. And I just posted on LinkedIn that, one of the things I wish I had was just a conversation with someone who did not have any skin in my game, like an outside person, and that I was willing to set aside 20 hours to have those conversations with people. And about 8 hours later, I had 35 requests, and I had to shut the thing down. So I'm literally, that was over a month ago. That was probably early January, and I'm literally still meeting the remainder of this week with another dozen people, I guess. But that's been kind of a project of love, because I'm trying to figure out what the industry needs. Because what I really want is I want the people that are lacing up their boots every morning to have a better life.
Amen.
The problem is the leadership in the construction companies needs to improve dramatically. That's what I think. And that, I want to be careful. I'm not saying they're not trying, they don't mean well, but what I've heard over and over and over again, like I had people fill out a questionnaire, and I bet 10 of the 35 questionnaires said, I have no idea what I'm doing.
I don't mean to laugh at that.
It's unfortunate and it's sad. And what's happening, because people are feeling this way, is that there's a lot of internal friction in the company, because decisions get made, decisions get undermined, tactical mode, everybody's in tactical mode, nobody's in operational strategic mode. And there's just a lot of emotional load that goes with all that. But somebody might think that the other one's not doing his job because he doesn't want to do his job. But the truth is, he's not doing all of his job or the best at his job because there's just no structure in place.
He doesn't know.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And doesn't know the expectations.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. I'd love to be, I don't want to invite myself to your party, but I've been, and what I heard you not say was like a legit mentor, is like what value it would have been for you to have a legit mentor. And then I've taken great discontent with like the environment of coaching. So if you go to a coaching seminar, you don't learn how to help people the best way possible. You learn how to brand yourself as like a total fugazi and charge a whole shitload of money. And I'm sorry to curse, but like, it's like a freaking, like me and money. Oh, sorry. Are you military? You said, oh, do you know that that's a military tenet? The 3 levels of that, like tactical, operational, strategic, like we literally like that's,
I did not know that. But
oh yeah. That's like formally
across those over the years.
I'm a pretend. I was a reservist, so I'm a pretend. I'm pretty sure that's like straight out of the doctrine book from. Anyway,
Okay.
yeah, thanks. But I've been stuck because I'm like the easiest thing for me to do, Herb, would be like, hey, sign up for my program and blah blah. And it's like I just want to help people, and I'm like because I feel I owe it to give it back. Because for me, it's like what took me 15 years, I thought it would take me 3. So the failed visionary way, and it's like if I could just take 2-3 years off of somebody's like arc of pain. Like there's an arc of pain, and I haven't figured out how to do that in a spirited way that respects my time and gives them something. But I have some ideas, so I'd love to iterate with you because what I've been doing lately is I set the gate. Everybody's invited, but I set the gate, and I haven't gotten one through the gate yet. I'm like, read a book. You need to read a book, and then I'll donate my time. And so anyway. I think it's awesome what you're doing. So you're going to invest back to the trades, and you haven't figured out quite how yet. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm doing some other things. I'm part of some peer groups that I'm kind of, I guess they call me the mentor in the peer groups. So it's smaller companies. So it's 3 peer groups I'm involved in. With about 6 companies in each one, smaller companies that are growing, and some of the people in these companies make comments like I mentioned, like I have no idea what I'm doing. I've literally had people say that to me. Like I just keep getting work dropped on me and I have no idea what I'm doing. So I'm involved in those peer groups and I'm doing some consulting too, more like strategic planning work. And then for me, this is kind of giving back, like having these conversations. But I'm also, I mean, if I'm real, I'm trying to figure out like where does the industry need to focus its attention to make it better for the people in the industry?
Yeah.
And I think, I talk about ambiguity. I think I think there's a lot of ambiguity there because I think the first place we go is, well, we got to fix the young people. Right? That's the first place everyone goes, is we've got to fix the young people, and they don't want to learn and they don't want to work. But the problem is the leadership, it's not that they're not hardworking people or really good, honest people. Like the people that I've been on these calls with, the 24, 25 so far, I would trust them with $1 million to go across the country and bring it back. Every single one of them. They're good people, really good people. And they just haven't found the structure they need. There's been so much opportunity in this construction world that, more and more companies are being born and growing at a rate that is just phenomenal. I mean, it took me 10 years to get to what these guys are doing their first year.
Yeah. Are you an EOS fan? Not fan? Do you guys run on? Are you familiar?
No.
Okay.
Say it again. What was the question?
It's the traction book, EOS, Entrepreneur.
I've read the book. Yeah.
Okay.
We never followed it. I guess I have read the book though.
Okay. Interesting. Well, I don't want to consume your time. I would just love to be in the brainstorming conversation and contribute. I'm passionate about, let me try this on precise. Like I find why are we blaming and or accosting the most important part of the trade, the boots, right? I call them the last hammer, the people that are actually building.
Yeah.
Like, at every step of our chain, it sounds like subrogation of risk, right? It sounds like I'm going to protect my ass and then I'm going to pass it and pass it and pass it all the way until the end. Do you agree with that? There's such a disharmony. There's such a disharmony.
Everybody looks for the easy answer, right? And so the easy answer is the workforce doesn't want to work. The harder answer is I'm a bad leader.
Yeah. Or
I'm not gifted. And listen, I struggled a lot in my leadership, especially at our company. I mean, I would say I was good at improvisation. That's what I really loved. Probably my best role that I ever was at was I was in the field as a foreman, because I could make the dirt move and I could make it sing. I just knew, but I was always changing something, right? I was always down close and I was always changing something, but I might get caught, like all of a sudden I've come up to a place where there's supposed to be a pipe in the ground, but the pipe isn't in the ground. The reason it isn't is because I wasn't looking ahead enough. And frankly, that's one of the things that kind of put me on this track of trying to see if people want to talk and get a handle on what's going on with the leadership out there. And I struggled. I did. It wasn't until I got my own coach, which probably wasn't until 5 years ago. I got my own coach to work with me and begin to tell me what the hell a CEO does, because I didn't know. I mean, literally, I got through one semester of college and called it quits and went to work. And, after that, it's kind of like, I was just like these people I've been talking to. I didn't know what the hell I was doing.
What can I add? Can we guess up your coach, or does he or she prefer to be anonymous? Who was the
Alex Judd from Path for Growth.
Say it one more time. Alex Jeff
Judd, G-U-D-D.
Is he still coaching, or is he?
Yeah. He owns a company that has several coaches.
Okay,
it's called Path for Growth.
That's awesome. What prompted you 5 years ago for you to say, obviously you had ascertained a certain level of success. What was the impetus to say, hey, I got a next level myself here?
What prompted me is it became just painfully clear that I didn't really know what I was doing. I was running a company. I had a good COO that was running it, and then he retired and another good COO came in. But I wasn't thinking far enough ahead. And frankly, we only in the last, I'd say 7-8 years, have gotten into a financial situation where I could actually think 20 years ahead instead of next year. And, that's one of the things I talk a lot about in presentations that I do about altitude. And if you're flying at 32,000 feet and you lose power, you can glide for a long, long time. You can glide for like 100 miles. But if you're at 1,000 feet and you lose altitude, your next alarm is the trees. You got about 45 seconds to find a place to land. So getting up, getting altitude as a company, as an organization, that's what I would say to these people. Like, what gets you altitude that allows you to see further straight ahead instead of always looking at the ground?
Who are you targeting? Like, is there a size? Anybody that wants it, or is there for these?
I didn't target anybody. I mean, you mean on these conversations? I just put it on LinkedIn and said, here's a questionnaire if you're interested, and fill it out, and I'll get back to you. And the only reason I had a questionnaire is because I just wanted to screen out the tourists.
Yeah.
I wanted people who are thoughtful about it.
I'm shocked you didn't get hundreds. So that's 35.
It's
still
only about 7 or 8 hours. So.
Oh yeah. Oh, you shut it down. You put it up and shut it down. Okay, I was gonna say. I'm like, dude. Yeah. Okay. I would have. That's awesome. So many areas I'd like to go. Is there anything before I want to talk about the ESOP, and then I've kind of got my standard questions for leaders. Is there anything nobody's prompted you to talk about that you really would like to witness to, or like things that are like not that would be fun to talk about?
Well, I think you mentioned vulnerability, and I think that's one of the things that nobody ever asks me about, that I think is probably the biggest thing missing in construction.
The world. I'd say the world.
Yeah. But especially construction.
So let's talk.
And the reason I say that is because in order to get the best creativity out of your people, they have to be willing to talk. And usually ideas are in group form, right? In construction, it's like, if one guy steps up and says, what if we approach it this way? And and everybody starts riding herd on him as a dumb idea, then, well, is he going to step up again next time? And that's what I've seen happen is over and over again, people being pounded for coming up with an idea or saying something, and it's like, what the question I guess I've started to ask myself about Sargent is, are we a knowing organization or are we a learning organization? And the big difference is how many rules do we have around what we do? Because every time you institute a new rule or policy, that serves to kind of stunt the creativity.
Yeah.
So the whole idea of vulnerability to me is people got to feel comfortable. And I'll give you an example. One of our employees, he still is a leader for us, one of the top leaders in the company. But years ago, he ran a region for us, and I spent a lot of time with him. Like, he and I would spend 2 days every 2 weeks riding around in a pickup truck, visiting projects. And so we got to know each other very well, and we always ribbing each other, good-naturedly. And we're in a strategic planning meeting, and he said something, and I don't remember what it was, but I was just joking with him, and I said, "That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard." And then we took a break for a coffee, and my CFO came up to me, and she said, "You realize you just told everybody in there not to say a word." I said, "No, I didn't." She said, "That's what they heard." So we went back in, and I said, "Okay, I've got to fall on my own sword here. We're back in the meeting. I apologize to Doug, and I apologize to all of you. I want people to talk." And that was such a, and I was 55 years old at that point in time. Imagine if I was still 30, what I would have said to him.
Yeah, that's so cool. I love that you took us here, because you're one of those comments away of, like, if you don't correct that, like that is like not just that meeting, right? Like, you've got a month of pain. Like, it's like, because we've actually got it going on today. One of the gals said, "Hey, I think I can do my job in this job," and like that creates some disorganization. But it's like, she's been told by 5 people that she'd be good at this job, and like one of my leaders was like, "That's a dumb idea," and I'm like, "Dude, somebody raises their hand and says I can do more. You cannot even momentarily say no. You must entertain it." And like, anyway, So
well, I think I think we just got to get rid of this mentality that we can even say it's a dumb idea.
Yep. Yeah, no, amen.
Get rid of the mentality that we can even think it's a dumb idea. I've had some dumb ideas, right? But
I got 5 a day. I got 5 bad ideas a day.
As a result of the position I'm in, not many people have told me I had dumb ideas, but I can tell you that I just got done writing our 100th anniversary book, and a lot of the dumb ideas that I had are written in there for everybody to see.
That's awesome. So vulnerability, how do we help leaders crack into that? What is your, like, given that, let me extrapolate a little bit for those that are like, vulnerability, what are these guys talking about? Because I suspect that's not commonplace, but it's like, to me, I think what we're all after is trust. Trust is the currency of leadership, right? And there's no better way to build trust than to be authentic. And authentically, we can't always have the answers. So that involves coming vulnerable. To me, vulnerable is like, "Hey, in this situation, I don't know. What about you?" So how does that would be my definition of why it's critical. How would you marry that, or how would you correct that? And why and what would you tell people that are a little bit ego and protected? Well,
clearly you can't. People aren't going to be vulnerable if they don't trust the surroundings, right? If they don't trust that it's a safe place. So, we just have to create a safe place, and that starts with us. It starts with me, right? It started with me apologizing to that guy and the whole team around that table, and thinking like, wow, I can't do that anymore. I got to be better than that. So, just dispatching the notion that there's a dumb idea. Now, there might be ideas that don't work. That's fine. But just calling it a dumb idea for the sake of, like I did, that's not good. So in most places, there's a spectrum of ideas that come out. There might be half a dozen ideas that come out, right? And you've got to choose one way to go. And some people are not going to be happy they didn't choose their idea. But I think still having that place and having empathy for where people are, both at work and in their personal lives, I think is an important aspect to it also. And when you talk about vulnerability, that can turn into like, okay, how vulnerable do you want me to be? Do you want me to, show up crying on the doorsteps of the office every day? Well, that's not, I think, the ideal vulnerability, but it's the idea that you can speak up and be able to state your thoughts or your opinions without being fired or pounded on.
And so I assume there's a version of Herb that was a blower and a goer. Like, shut the F up and work harder. Suck less, like, let's go get it done. If not, Kevin is that person, was that person for a long time. How do you emerge out of that? Like, where does, and I understand the 3 levels, getting higher level, but when do you say, hey, like, that's telling people to suck less and work harder is a bad idea? Like, how, and like, I don't like the idea of like work-life balance. I like the idea of like just life and like enjoyment of, but I would love to, like, I'm sure you went through a season where, or along, whatever, where family and business were like, so I guess what I'm circling around is this idea. I'm speaking to the struggling entrepreneur, right? We're working 80 hours a week. We would have been making better money, at least per hour, if we would have stayed at the job, right? We're in this a shit show of an environment. We don't know what we're doing. We're lost. We're stressed out. We're not spending time with our kids. Like, that's not important. We're providing. We're in the blow, go, grind mode. It's like, how do I get myself to a place where I can think long term? And like, how do I get myself to a place where I can be compassionate? And how do I like get out of this rhythm that sounds like work harder, work harder, work harder? I start with me. I pass it to my people. I exhaust everybody around me. And I'm maybe, let's say that person is struggling. And then there's another person that's being successful, right? I'm making more money now, but I'm miserable. Like, I don't know my wife and my children, all of that. So I guess like, how do you, I'm sure you went through that season. How do you get out of it? How do you let yourself get out of it?
So that's another, I guess, of 3 things that I think have come out of these conversations I've had is there's just this emotional load on people that nobody wants to talk about. And for me, that came from, I didn't think I was succeeding at any aspect of my life. I really didn't. I didn't feel like I was succeeding at work the way I should, and I didn't feel like I was succeeding at home the way I should. And at work, my business had gotten to the point where I was the lone bottleneck. Like, I was the person who was the bottleneck. We could not grow any beyond me because I was in tactical mode 80% of the time and in operational mode 20. So I knew I needed to make a change there. And so I hired someone to come in and help me on the operational side of the business, which allowed me to think a little bit more and look further down the road. One of the things that I was gifted with inordinately is the number of mentors that took an interest in me, all the way from my little league coach to, superintendents, my grandfather. And, I know so many millions of kids don't have a single mentor out there or anybody that cares. And, I'm just like, why was I so fortunate? So one of the things that I tried to start doing is when I left home, most days, frankly, don't go that great. You know that. Especially in the construction world, because you can have a perfect plan that all this other outside influence has more control over than maybe you do. So what I try to do is on the way home, just start thinking about the things I'm grateful for. And that put me in a totally different mindset when I got home. And I was careful. My wife at the time, she'd say, what'd you do today? And I'd just say, I worked. And I didn't share a lot of what went on at work because I didn't want to relive it all. And I didn't want to bring my mood back down. Like I just spent the last half hour bringing my mood back up. I was on a call, I think it was the first call. More of these calls, both sides of the screen, there's been tears coming out on these calls I've been on. And one guy in particular asked me, he said, I just go home. My wife's not happy with me because I just go home, open a beer, and I sit on the front porch and watch a sprinkler go around and around. And I said, well, is there anything you admire about her? And he said, yeah. And I said, what was that? He says, he had to think for a few seconds. He says, well, she doesn't take my shit. I said, okay, now, what if you went home and told her that you admire that about her? He goes, that would be kind of blocky at first, wouldn't it? And probably because you never have, right? But what if that became a habit? And he was complaining about a couple of his kids. They got 6 kids between them. And I said, what if instead of going and, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, you didn't do this, what if you went home and said, I admire that you did this? And he texted me the next morning and he said, I can't believe what a difference that made. And I only knew, I never did that with my own kids until more recently, about 3 years ago. I met a guy and we were just having lunch and we got done prayers and he said, I guess I was talking about a relationship that I have, and he said, well, you probably just need to tell him what you admire about him. So that's a long answer to your question. How do I pull out of this? It's setting better expectations at the ground level. That's some of the things we did. We set better expectations at the ground level. And we have a process that we call prep inspections that we go through before we do any particular piece of work. We have to do a prep inspection, and that outlines all the expectations. So better expectations, better accountability, better decisions, driving those decisions at the ball, as I said, and not always questioning those decisions. If a decision goes bad, we need to have a conversation about it and learn why it went bad. LinkedIn is full of that kind of wisdom, right? Fall forward, fail forward, that sort of thing. And that's really a big part of it. And rather than have people come to me for everything that they want to do and ask me questions, it's like, okay, bring me your intentions with a couple of reasons. If you've ever read the book, Turn the Ship Around, it's of a Navy commander that took control, I can't remember his name, took control of the worst operating nuclear sub in the U.S. Navy, and a year later it was the best operating. And basically it was just by him saying to the crew, I'm not going to tell you everything to do. You come tell me what your intention is and give me the reasons why. That's the kind of stuff I think that helped me a lot, that I didn't need to micromanage anymore.
That's awesome. Well, I have a standard list of questions, and I don't want to keep you much past the hour, so I want to get into those. But before we do, I guess your disposition, and I didn't want to start with this, but I think if anybody that's listening doesn't know you, they're probably going to be like, well, who is this guy? So if we could just get a quick summary of the company and your key wickets really quick. But my question is and so private equity is all excited about the fence industry. So I'm taking 20 of those calls a week. And I just, I would love to get your take on that. I won't lead the witness. That arena versus the ESAP arena. Just your unfettered take would be cool for me. I have thoughts. I'm going to withhold them.
Yeah, so my grandfather founded our business in 1926. He's the guy behind me in the boat. And then my dad and uncle took it over in the late 1970s. They sold the business in 1988 to a company from Paris, France. And that company had a lot of contract work in Africa, all across Europe. And they immediately had major financial downturn in their work in Africa. That was about 65% of their work, and it went from that high to about 16% in 3 years. So that, I guess I'd say, was a failed sale. So my dad was still running the company, but he left after about a year. And then I left after about 3 years, and then had the opportunity to buy the company back in 2005. And when I bought the company back, we had about 100 people, and that company had about 500 people. So it was, I had to borrow a lot of money to make that happen. And the one thing I knew, I felt quite sure I didn't want to sell out again, right? But I'm going to be gone someday, so something's going to happen with this company. And we'd already gone the sellout route once, and that didn't work out. And as great as it all looked, and it did look great up front. As great as it all looked, like no due diligence in the world would have uncovered that Africa was going to cave in like it did on these folks. So I just wanted I wanted us to all be in our own control, right? Our employees. So starting around 2008, I started looking at ESOP, but never was quite satisfied that it would work. I had heard of ESOPs a lot, but more in like a factory, factory type setting, where you can go in and you can address the whole crew every morning if you want to, or whenever you want to. You can gather everybody up, and our workforce is distributed across 5 states. And, I just wondered. So I finally got into a peer group that had an ESOP in it, and it was an earthwork company much like ours. That was distributed around Missouri and Arkansas, in those states over that way. So that's when I said, yeah, we'll take another close look at this. And in 2012, I met I went out to visit this company and talked to a bunch of their employees. And I was like, I'm doing due diligence for my employees here now. And it was all great. And so we did it on April 30th, 2013. And so almost 13 years ago, and it's been, I would do it 1,000 times out of 1,000.
Did you use FMLI for it?
No.
Let's talk about ESOP, pretending that nobody knows what an ESOP is. Employees,
Yeah.
stock own, what is, actually, yeah, why don't you?
Employee stock ownership plan.
Okay. And are you in favor of only 100%? Because sometimes, so I could sell, or let me try to, or do you want to explain it? Or do you want me to try and then you clean me up?
Well, I think I know where you're going. So you don't have, we did ours 100% all at once. So I said, employees, here's the company, pay me back when you can. So that's the way I set it up. I didn't take any money out up front, just pay me when you can. You can do a smaller percentage. You can do, I guess, whatever percentage you want. I mean, ESOPs are kind of like snowflakes. There's no one that's the same as the other. And I'm familiar with a couple people I know that have gone 30% ESOP. And I didn't want to do that. I didn't need to do it that way. I felt like if we were going to do ESOP, I wanted to do 100% because in my situation, I felt like I was only telling the people they weren't in altogether. I wanted them to be all in. But there are also reasons not to do it that way, and really good reasons not to do it that way, to do a 30% because you may not want to take on bank debt, that sort of thing. So you can do 30, 60, 90, 100, whatever you want to do. And the transaction really looks like, as an owner, I get a valuation on my company, and then we have an ESOP attorney who begins to put the ESOP structure together. We hire a trustee to work, or we set up a trust and hire a trustee to work on behalf of the employees, because this ESOP is actually an ERISA product. It's regulated by the Department of Labor. So the point is, they want to make sure that the value of the company is fair going in. So you have a trustee that also gets a valuation, and then the trustee and the owner, me, negotiate between those two valuations, right? If theirs is lower than mine, then we've got to come up somewhere in the middle.
And then is it typical for a bank to get involved so you do get some liquidity, or you play banker, or like you said, it's a snowflake draw?
I think usually there's some level of bank involvement. So there's some liquidity. I had been in business enough years, so I was fortunate enough to already have some of my own liquidity that I didn't need to take any at that time. So I just did 100% note.
That's awesome. Well, kudos to you. Is there generally, are you going to get top of market is going to go sell to family offices and private equity, I assume, and then there's going to be like a lower, more conservative valuation on the ESOP, or is that not necessarily true?
I think that's right. It depends on what part of the industry you're in or what industry you're in, but I think I know a company whose owner I know quite well just finally went ESOP, but he felt like he couldn't. He tried to sell 2 or 3 different times to some outside buyer, but they just couldn't find one to make it work, I guess. And I mentioned to him trying ESOP, and he didn't want to do it only because ESOPs don't value real estate the same way you might if you were just a buyer out there. It's a strange it's a strange way that they look at it, but so it's you can bring bank debt in or you cannot bring bank debt in, but that I think the private equity values are typically higher than ESOP values.
I'm gonna impress you because I think you don't share it or you're just a better politician than me. So I have I have this distinct belief that entrepreneurship is for founders, builders, creators. For me, I take issue with private equity advertising themselves as anything other than what they are, and that's gambling. Is that too strong of a gamble? They throw money at things. Is that too strong?
Well, they throw money at things, and then I think typically I don't think it's almost ever good for employees. Yeah.
Okay, we share. Anyway, I haven't decided how public I want to be with my opinions about these things. Well, Herb, I'd love to talk to you just really quick. If you just how does spirituality enter the mix for you? I think I saw some video where I think that came to you later in life, or is that something you're willing to talk about, or prefer not to talk about?
What was it again?
Just your faith and spirituality. I believe I saw a video of you talking about God, but I may have made that up.
It was I spent the better part of half a century running away from God. I was horrified as a I don't know, probably 10-year-old at church when I saw a pamphlet come through. I grew up in Georgia, and I saw a pamphlet come through of God's hand pushing 2 adults into the flames of hell while 2 children looked on. And, I was like, man, do I need a friend like that? So I spent 35, 40 years, running away. And a lot of that time that I spent, as a result of a lot of things that happened in my childhood, it was like I didn't even really care if I woke up in the morning. That was the reality. And while I never, I guess there's different levels of suicide. You can think about it, you can begin to plan it, and you can begin to do it. And I guess I would say, for me, it was just a place where if things weren't, I was going to say ideal, but if things weren't just even almost good, I would go to this place like, I could not wake up and be happy about that. And then I had a dear friend that invited me to church one time. I was going through some personal struggles, and actually her daughter got up and did a solo. And when she did, it was like the whole church. I was probably 2/3 back in the church, and it was like the whole thing parted. Just like Moses, like the church parted. And it was like she was singing directly to me. And that's when I said, I think I can do this, And I'll be honest with you, I was thinking about this. I'm going to be sharing on what's called Dirt World Connect Theology Live in a month or so. I'll be honest with you, at the beginning, the very beginning, it was like, well, there's upside in believing in Jesus, right? I mean, that's pretty pragmatic, right? There's upside. I'm thinking, like, if somebody said to me, there's upside in getting to know Herb, I'd be offended by that.
Yeah.
But the thing is, with God and with Jesus, there's so much grace. It's like they'll take you for whatever reason you come. And it wasn't long before my upside belief began to turn into real faith. And the fact that Jesus is there to take care of my sins and to help me be a better person. And that was 12, 13 years ago. And I can still swear like a pirate's parrot sometimes, you know.
I think that's okay. I've come to know him pretty well. I think he's fine with that. I don't think he's worried about our language. I think he's worried about it in here, but I'm a heretic. I guess if you don't mind, I have another, like it's my life's work is to bring unlikely people together. And I've been a Bible banger since college, very unlikely. And then I've recently kind of deconstructed my faith. So, what denomination have you found? Did you reconnect with the big man?
Well, it was a non-denominational church. So
okay.
Just a Christian.
Awesome. Very good. All right, we'll move on. All right, I got my lightning round of leadership questions, and then I'll let you be. Is there anything we didn't talk about that you'd hoped we would? Is there anything we missed that you would like to talk to the?
I think just to me, just some clarity and some space for strategy is really what I think people need out there.
Awesome. We'll be staying tuned to figure out how we get to Herb. All right. So have you ever taken time to define? So these are all my questions. Have you ever taken time? Herb's leadership definition, the definition of good leadership.
Well, I'll go back to John Maxwell, and John Maxwell says leadership is starting where you are, using what you have, and doing what you can.
I haven't heard that. I'm familiar with Matt. Actually, I think I got it.
Use what you have and do what you can. And he goes further to say, if I can't trust you with nothing, why would I trust you with more? That's totally John Maxwell.
Are you, what's your favorite books? What's your favorite Maxwell book, actually? I've got one. I'm in a book club.
I'll be honest with you, I've never read one of his books, but right now I've got one in front of me that I'm reading right now called Necessary Endings.
Oh, nice. I'm staring at I gotta change your world. I've never read one of his either, so that's fascinating.
Necessary Endings will change your world. So
there you go. Most important trait when you think of the traits, right? In the military, we have JJ did, type buckle. Like when do you think of the key 1 or 3 to 5 leadership traits that you look for?
I'd say empathy.
Empathy. What's your favorite part of the construction industry?
Working with people, collaboration, achieving things that don't seem like you can achieve almost every day. It feels like we might not be able to achieve this, but then you do. And you do it as a group.
Awesome. I love that. If you could change one thing about the industry, what would it be?
I think it would be just the way people treat each other. You know, I would like to see a lot more respect.
Herb Sargent, what makes you unique?
Oh boy, I think I'm about as average as any. I mean, really, I'm average height, I'm average bald for my age. You know, I don't know what makes me unique. I guess I just want to give back. You know, and I know a lot of people do, but I know a lot of people don't also.
Yeah, that's awesome. You're above average in my book, just so you know. And a lot of people, I think 11,000 people find you to be above average. So I appreciate your humility. I try to walk with that as well. And I'm an arrogant prick sometimes. Isn't that interesting? How about that dichotomy? Your favorite books? None of Maxwell's. You got a reading list?
Well, you know, my favorite book is a Mark Twain book. It's called Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court.
Oh, that's awesome. Weird aside, I've been reading Dostoevsky. I'm like getting into old theology. It's really Really, can I ask you why that book is your favorite book? Is it a pleasure, or it's like eternal meaning embedded in a fiction?
Well, there's a lot of meaning. I mean, Twain goes through, basically he gets hit in the head and he wakes up in King Arthur's court back in, I think it was the 1300s, right? And he's got all this knowledge from the 19th century that he's trying to impart into the 13th century. And he can't get through because of some of the social mores of those days, and they just weren't very advanced. Like a human life meant nothing because the Black Plague went through. So a human life really meant nothing. So just a lot of social narrative in that book that he was trying to take and bring up to his current time.
I'm adding it to the list. I haven't read any Mark Twain, so thank you.
It's almost entirely written in Old English, so it's kind of a hard read, but it's so funny too.
Yeah, no, that'll be good. I mean, if I can get through a Russian author's book, I think I'm gonna somehow get through Twain. And I shouldn't say that, right? I even my stupid brain will be able to manage. What about most influential mentor or advisor to you in your development?
My grandfather.
Grandpa. That's cool. Okay, so a lot of people like to answer all of these. You can just pick one or whichever ones you want to answer. So I'll go through all the questions. I'll do it twice. I'll read them twice. So your favorite famous person and why? Your least favorite famous person and why? The story of your toughest season of life. If you were a notional god or the ruler of the world for a day with no restrictions, you're not no resource constraints, what problem would you solve and why? And what would you like your construction legacy to be? That's it. I can read them again if you'd like.
Yeah. Skip the first two.
Good. I'm still I ask because I'm curious, but yep. And then, so your toughest season of life, or if you were a notional ruler of the world with no resource confinements, what problem would you solve?
Well, I'm in my second season, for me, and I guess I'll tie this in with legacy, and I don't care if anybody mentions my name in the future, but what I hope they do is they can take some meaning from some of the things that I've done, that I've been able to make some difficult changes, some difficult choices, and it's been almost a half a century of work for me, and like I said, I don't care if anybody mentions my name. It's like I hope that some of the things I do are worth somebody examining for meaning someday. That's
awesome. It's super cool. Are you writing your book yet?
Wrote it. The 100th anniversary book is complete.
Okay. But that's not your biography. That's the story of the company.
My biography is a little thornier than the history book.
But that's the juice, man. That's the juice. So I'll ask you a question, and I wonder if you've ever pondered it. Why didn't our man Jesus, why didn't he, before he launched, write it all down? And why did he never once tell anybody to write or read, do you think?
You're asking me to speculate on what Jesus did or didn't do.
You don't have to. I find it to be interesting.
I guess, I think it comes down to humility, I'd say.
Interesting. Herb, thanks for coming. Listen, great conversation. I couldn't get him to cry. I guess I'm not a good facilitator. I gotta go back to the drawing board. I didn't want to press too hard. Look, a lot of wisdom in that man. If you didn't, two key takeaways is figure out how to be more vulnerable and authentic. You don't have to have, this is from me, is people aren't looking for leaders to make every decision. It's only when there's not an easy decision to make that they need you to make a decision. The rest of it is they need you to set conditions for them to do their best work. That is what I'd say. That, and anybody can be anything they want to be. I totally believe that. That's why I'm here talking, being a talking head. But I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked it, give me a comment. If you didn't, give me a comment. Share it, the whole 9 yards. It's going to be some interesting inquiries coming up. So thank you, the listener, for listening. To my production crew, I appreciate you keeping us on the rails. And go build better. It's a beautiful world out there, and we make it happen.
Thanks for listening to the Atomic Construction Podcast. If you have questions or comments on this episode, feel free to reach out to us through our website, which you'll find in the show notes below. We also have a Linktree page that lists most, if not all, of the sites that stream the Atomic Construction Podcast, and you'll find a link to that in the show notes as well. So you can click on that, find your favorite site, click on over, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another episode. If you know of anybody in the trades that has a cool and interesting story to share, let us know so we can connect and share their story. Thank you for your support. Cheers to building, and thanks for listening.